Hello, everyone. Welcome to The World According to Masih. This is my podcast where we explore global events through unfiltered conversations with outstanding thinkers and changemakers. Today, my guest is Jhanisse Vaca Daza. She is from Bolivia, and she has a lot to say about Bolivia. A powerhouse in activism. She's the director of the Freedom Fellowship Program at Human Rights Foundation. And also, she is a co-founder of nonviolent citizen movement in Bolivia. Dictator in Bolivia trying to ruin the Amazon forest. But Jhanisse and her fellow citizen activists are trying to save it. She was a Sakharov Fellow and received Peace Ambassador Award from the European Commission. But beyond that, she has no fear of exposing dictator. Listen to our conversation. I'm sure you will enjoy it. Why dictators are really scared of environmental activists in authoritarian regime, why this is linked to corruption as well. This is two areas that you are very, very active.
People think Bolivia is a small country, but my sister, I have seen in my own people and in my own forest that we are like a test tube for authoritarianism. They test tactics on us that then they later apply somewhere else. And the narrative machine that they built around Morales is insane. The fact that this man can get away with raping an underage girl and still not be called for it in international media shows you that they spend so much time building his image. They spend so much time selling this fake narrative of the indigenous man that became president. When during his government, the attacks on indigenous people's land were higher than under any right-wing government that we've had in Bolivia.
I'm only 50 kilos. How come I work with different agencies at the same time? And now
I swear.
both of us living under authoritarian regimes, trying actually to make the world a better place, and then they call you American puppet.
And this is actually the first time I'm talking about it publicly.
What's going on? If, like, you ask American young generation or people across the globe, the only thing I'm sure that they all know about Bolivia is Evo Morales.
If they know Evo Morales. But you know what, Masih, and
Is he finished?
I'm so happy that we're talking about this because just like every Bolivian was watching the elections in Venezuela because we knew our future depended on what happened with Maria Corina Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez, I think right now every big authoritarian country, their citizens and those of us that want to be free should be looking at Bolivia. Bolivia is Iran's biggest foreign policy project in Latin America.
We will talk about it. It's like a proxy for the Islamic Republic.
1,000%.
We will talk about it, but I really want you to take me there because you were there, powerful and brave, and we were all watching you.
Thank you.
And your movement. I want to actually hear about the election because a lot of people now say that this is the end of lefties.
We are almost at the end of the mass government of this regime that has been supported by Iran, by Russia, by China. And we are about, I don't want to sing victory yet, my sister, because we have one more big battle, which is the election that we will have on October 19th. It's the second round of elections because no one won with majority on August 6th, 7th,
So the runoff
16.
is going to be between two right wings, correct?
Between a centrist and a right wing. Okay. But beyond that, it's still quite unclear if one of them is closely allied to the government or not. But beyond what they stand for, we are still under the Arce government. We still have Evo Morales in the middle of the country with paramilitary groups threatening to not recognize the elections or to mobilize his groups and denounce this as a right-wing fraud. So we are not yet out of the woods. And this is a very important thing to keep in mind because if we start celebrating too early, we will lose this opportunity, which is tremendous for the whole region.
You have Venezuela, so you saw what happened in Venezuela, how dictators stole the election.
Yes.
So that's why maybe are you expecting any violence?
We hope there won't be. On the August 17th election that we just had, I was one of the leaders of a national movement that was trying to protect the vote and have a parallel vote count so we would know the results and we wouldn't be lied to. And it was an incredible exercise of unity, of mobilization. I want us to talk today about nonviolence movements and how they work. I know that a lot of people are disappointed in them, but we just saw in action what happens when you create a movement
Yes.
that is not only a response to the fear of a fraud in this election because of what we've seen in Venezuela, but we've been through a fraud ourselves in 2019.
Yes.
Bolivia, the government created a huge fraud. We took to the streets for 21 days, and that built on the 2016 fight where we were defending our right to keep the constitution as it is because Morales wanted to legalize indefinite re-election. And that built on the 2007 fight, which was to prevent the constitution from being modified. And the reason I'm listing all of this, Masih, specifically thinking of Iran, is that sometimes when we mobilize and we don't get the dictator out, we think we lost. But in reality, we're building blocks that other people will stand on, and then we will keep building on top of that. And eventually, we will ideally reach a point like Bolivia is reaching today. And that's why I list all of this, because it's not just us that are defending the vote this year. It's the people that have lost their lives in the process. It's the people that mobilized when it seemed like nothing was going to be successful. It's the people that are not maybe protesting yet, but they will be in the future if there's another attempt to turn us into an authoritarian country. Everything is linked, and we shouldn't give up ever. Everything works on the benefit of a country, and these processes to defend democracy take a long time, and we have to learn to build on top of it.
I love it when you're hopeful, because a lot of activists and dissidents now I am following their path in their own countries. They think that nothing gonna happen. Like my people in Iran during 2019, more than like 3,000 people were killed. And 2020, 800 people got killed. And now when you talk to people inside the country, they actually say that they're worried if they take back to the street, people are going to get killed and nothing going to happen. But there are powerful leaders telling the same thing, that, you know, each time, like the distance between two uprising getting more close and close. So Morales finished? Is it a regime change through election?
It seems like it could be, and that's the important thing, because Morales has, and his party has essentially started attacking itself. It has divided into different factions. Each faction had their own candidate, but Morales, since he couldn't run for the presidency, he decided to boycott the elections, and he called on people to vote null. He also threatened with violence, and he even sent some of his legislators to attack one of the regions where we were working, and they tried to open a case saying that the people doing the vote control were in theory trying to create fraud within the government, hacking the system. Can you believe that, Masih? Like the people trying to do electoral control are the ones doing fraud.
It's always like people trying to fight against terrorism. They call us terrorists.
We are the terrorists in case. But it's, you know what's very interesting to me, Masih, and I think this also shows the moment where we are right now, which there's so much reason to have hope. I really, really hope people can get that from us, because unlike every other election when Morales was running, we usually had Hispan TV, Telesur, like all the Iranian and Russian TV channels creating misinformation, talking about us the whole day, live transmission from Bolivia.
That's how dictators are.
They gave up. It's like ahead of time, there was no coverage of Bolivia. They were talking about Pakistan, and when the election happened, at the same time, everything they were talking about was the situation in Iran, the situation in Gaza. Putin was meeting with Trump in the Alaska summit. So I feel that we are now in a moment where this autocratic alliance is weak, and they are giving up on their smaller colonial states, like the case of Bolivia, what we saw in Syria.
Not just the smallest, not just... I had a conversation actually with Gary Kasparov. He was sitting right over there, and he said the same thing, which I liked it. He said that dictators, when they're losing, they actually know the moment that they have to give up.
But they gave up because the Bolivian government divided. And that government divided so much because we pressured them with sustained protests in 2019 until they had to decide how they were going to respond. They lost power for a year. They came back, and then they had to divide. And the reason when they come back to power and Evo Morales is not president is because since he had already violated the constitution to try to get himself reelected, and people protested so much against him, the mass realized if he's our candidate again, it's unlikely we will win. We will put someone else as a puppet. But then later on, the puppet Luis Arce, who's currently president, revealed against Morales. And what I'm trying to say is this came as a result of people protests, massive protests and uprising. But at the moment, we didn't know this is how it would end. So we thought, oh, we had a massive uprising. They came back into power. We lost. But we didn't lose. It like everything builds on itself. It's always good to keep defending democracy.
You said that dictators gave up Iran as well, the Islamic Republic as well?
There was no coverage from Hispan TV and the other kind of bots that would be talking about us. They barely had anything published. Again, I think they decided to retreat when they saw what was happening. But I don't expect them. I suspect that something else may happen between now and the elections. I don't think they will ever give up and leave that easily, especially because of the geopolitical importance of Bolivia. A lot of people don't understand this, but I always compare the geopolitical situation of Bolivia in Latin America to Tibet in Asia. It's a country that has strategic resources. It has lithium. It has uranium. It's the center of drug trafficking and drug production. Coca leaves are legal in Bolivia. Much of Evo Morales' forces are around the creation of cocaine, and that's what fuels the drug trafficking in Venezuela, what fuels Hezbollah, what fuels many of these illegal rings that work together.
Tell me about the Islamic Republic influence, because as far as we know, the Islamic Republic, I'm not sure whether it was Morales or someone else, signed an agreement, 20 years defense agreement.
It was 2023 during the current government.
Okay.
This is a long relationship. It started in 2007, and since then, Bolivia has been Iran's biggest project in Latin America. The Iranian embassy in Bolivia, Masih, according to some press reports, has around 200 people working there. This is a country that should only have 10 people in their embassy or consulate. It's the biggest one in the region, and no one understands why it's such a big embassy. Why are there so many workers? What type of work are they doing? Bolivia has a bigger Iranian embassy than Spain does. So it's always been something very, very important to keep in mind, because Bolivia provides to Iran not only special resources such as uranium, lithium. Right now, they recently had a conversation about rare earth minerals, which are in different parts of Bolivia that want to be exploited by the Iranian government, who will very gladly do it and cover all the costs as long as Bolivia agrees to special terms that we don't know about yet. And then this deal, the 2023 deal, is about defense. In theory, it's an alliance between the two countries for military defense against
basically
drug
the Islamic
trafficking.
Republic trying to train the military in Bolivia.
Train the military, bring in drones. The MOU itself has never been published. So Bolivians, a lot of Bolivians, myself included, we've spoken up and we said we need to, if there's a military agreement with another country, you should at least let us know what the main parts of this deal are. And the Argentinian government has given public statements against this because it includes military training, military equipment, and military weapons, but there's no clarity as to where and why they will be used. And again, we need to think Bolivia is the heart, not just of drug trafficking. Masih, this is something that I learned in my environmental work. There's other type of material besides drug trafficking that are also very important in terms of what they cause in the region. And mercury is also something that is trafficked from Bolivia to every other country around us. So it's already a country with a very strong logistical and operational system for illegal materials. And if on top of that, you bring in countries like Iran, like Russia, who are interested in our lithium, that will exploit it with no care for the environment, and that will be benefiting their own programs, because Russia, for example, has a nuclear exploration program in La Paz. You're opening the door in a country with no rule of law, with no transparency, with very little freedom of speech and freedom of the press, to these monsters that need the geopolitical influence in the region and that need to be able to mobilize their military resources within this region. So Bolivia is in the middle of South America. It's the heart and center. It has borders with 5 other countries. It's the dreamland for any dictator. And just like China tries to control Tibet because of the resources, the natural resources, the borders, and the influence on the culture and the region, and they are trying to delete it completely. Bolivia, while the West has not paid attention to us, has been the favorite daughter of authoritarian regimes in Latin America.
I am confused at why the West is really downplaying the alliance between dictatorship. The way that they provide weapons, drone, as you said.
Training.
this is the Islamic Republic sending drones to Putin to kill innocent Ukrainians. This is the Islamic Republic is a great sponsor of terrorism like Hamas, Houthi, Hezbollah. And they're all doing this, through other authoritarian regimes. So they're very united. And I don't really get it that how democracies are not as united as these autocrats. That makes me angry.
I don't know why. I think there's a part of a lack of perspective and understanding of how big the threat is. I think people think this will never happen in my country, so they don't prepare accordingly. But in my case, sister, the first smear campaigns against me in 2019 came from a media that was Russian-sponsored. It didn't even come from the regime. And then journalists...
The media was sponsored by Russian government?
Yes.
Came after you?
Yes,
and English. The Russian mobsters came after me on U.S. soil.
Exactly. And it was very interesting for me to see because at the moment I was a local activist working on environmental things. So I was like, why does this Russian media care about me? Like, I'm barely even known in Bolivia. Why is this happening? But then I realized it was part of a larger plan because the Russian media and Iranian media and International Alliance of Dictators media was already trying to protect Morales and trying to protect his image because they needed to keep him in power, to keep getting all the resources that they get. Because at the end of the day, this is very clear to me and to any Bolivian, especially those of us that, again, I keep bringing in environmental things, but we will get there. We will get there.
I have a lot of questions.
This is about resources. It's not about ideology. It's not about indigenous rights, as the Bolivian government try to make it look. This is an alliance to steal resources from the people and to keep kleptocrats in power, and that's what they focus on, and that's what they would try to do.
Exactly, and that's why in my country, it's maybe unbelievable for who live in the West, but saving environment is a crime. Right now that we're talking, environmental activists are in prison. And one of the famous one who just came from Canada to help other environmental activists got tortured and killed in prison.
I'm so sorry.
Just trying to save the lakes, save the environment. And that's why I thought you're the right person. If I ask you, you can explain to those who have no idea that why dictators are really scared of environmental activists in authoritarian regime, why this is linked to corruption as well. This is two areas that you are very, very active. Environment and corruption.
In Standing Rivers, Ríos de Pie is the name of the movement that I started in Bolivia. Our focus is to
save Amazon?
The Amazon. Not just the Amazon, because there are many other types of forests, but the Bolivian government, since it signed a deal with China in 2019 and other deals in the past, to expand the agricultural frontier in order to export more beef to China, 10 times more than the amount that we usually produce per year. They essentially legalize the use of fires. And a lot of people, when they hear fires in the Amazon, they think of Brazil. But for example, Masih, just last year, the area that burned in Bolivia equals to the size of Portugal. We had an area that big burning in my country, and people abroad only think of Brazil. They never ever talk about Bolivia. Again, the Bolivian government is really good at downplaying their own mistakes so that the international media doesn't care. And then the ideological lens on much of the journalists in the West, they only look at what they think are right-wing governments, and they think that the left-wing governments in Latin America are not doing anything against the indigenous people or the environment, when in reality it's even worse because there's less checks and balances. But in our case, we work a lot with firefighters. We don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. We are there with the firefighters. We go with them. We train on how to support them. We try to identify the people that are starting the fires. And we have noticed that this is a pattern that doesn't only include the agricultural expansion, which already, again, benefits the government and the Chinese government. So there's an authoritarian interest there. But there's also a lot of interest from drug trafficking rings that, again, are part of this government structure, because drug traffickers need space in protected areas in order to have their factories and to move the merchandise out of the country. So for them, it's easier to clear land for any of these things with fires. It's cheaper than to do it themselves. It's even easier to do it without being caught, if you want to think of it that way, which is why in Bolivia, some firefighters, when they come to the natural area to put off the fire, they receive shootings from the inside from drug trafficking rings. And we even had an underage firefighter. He was 16 years old, I think.
And he died
because of this. And it's a very, very difficult situation. And in this process, I have learned a lot being on the ground, being with the firefighters and with our team, because people think that democracy issues are in one bucket, the environment is in another bucket, women's issues are in another bucket. But what I keep trying to explain to people is, if there is no rule of law, and if there is an international incentive for the government to destroy the environment, number one, the beneficiary of those resources are going to be an authoritarian government who will use these resources to stay in power as long as possible. It's entrenching authoritarianism. It's making it stronger. But then on the other end, if there is no rule of law, and I've experienced this myself and other activists in Bolivia, anyone can come and shoot you and they're not going to be responsible. So there is no guarantee that while doing your work for the environment, your life and your rights will be respected. So it's even more dangerous because the price on your head is minimum. I've been told myself in Bolivia that hiring a hitman, since there's so many drug trafficking rings, has gotten so cheap, Masih. It could be just for $500 to get me out.
Yeah, of course. As you said, because when the law is not making those, like putting them in prison or making them accountable, of course anyone can. That's a good way of making money, easily being protected by the government.
And if there's no rule of law, it's not just environmental activism, feminism, any type of activism that involves a public position or public speaking, there's no guarantee that your life and your rights will be respected if there's no rule of law. So if there's no democracy, there's very little hope for any type of activism to be successful and to actually change things on the ground. And beyond that, again, Masih, we've seen, in the case of Bolivia, a lot of the drug trafficking money that is earned when you create the drugs and you export them is then washed in illegal gold mining. And the main companies that participate in illegal gold mining in Bolivia are Chinese companies. So the link between drug trafficking, illegal and money laundering, and international authoritarian regimes, it's not just something in people's minds or that happens in high diplomatic embassies and meetings. It's something that I see on the forest in my country every day. It's something that indigenous people in my country and firefighters, we are very aware of how China plays a huge role in the destruction of our forests, of how Russia plays a huge role in the destruction of our forests, and that's why Russian journalists come after me when I talk about this, or why Iran has such a huge interest in what is going on in my country, has such a huge embassy, God knows for what, and it's almost forbidden to say anything against Iran in Bolivia. It will not make it to the news, and people will hardly report about it. I've talked to journalists, I've asked them, why is the Iranian embassy so big in La Paz? Why are there so many people? No one wants to investigate because it's too scary even to talk about it publicly. And again,
that's shocking.
This international
alliance should be so easy for international media.
Yeah.
So we're getting there now. International media, the mainstream media. You had a fight with Washington Post.
I did.
I'm going to tell you about my fight, and then you share your fight with Washington Post. Mine was when Salman Rushdie was stopped by assassins here, here in New York. New York Times reached out to me as a survivor of assassination plot to write an op-ed for them. And I did. And it was so funny that immediately they got back to me and said that, so we think that the motive behind the plot is not clear, and that's why we cannot publish your article. I was like, I am from Iran, a country where the supreme leader issued the fatwa against Salman Rushdie. And I followed the case. And I know that the fatwa being repeated many times, but the current leader as well. And the person who actually stopped Salman Rushdie, when you go to his page, big picture of his Facebook account is the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. So it is obvious that the motivation behind this assassination plot was the fatwa. So they haven't published it. So these are extreme, like mainstream media here calling Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Revolutionary Guard, a hero, which was a killer. He was in charge in Syria. When chemical attack happened, he was there. The Iraqi, a lot of Iraqi people telling me how he was in charge of killing innocent Iraqis. So that's how the mainstream media trying to fantasize with our killers. That's my fight. So I saw you having a fight with Washington Post. I was like, yeah, again, a person coming with secondhand experience of living under authoritarian regime is trying to actually educate the mainstream media. This is the fact. What was that?
It was the fact of Evo Morales being a pedophile. This is another thing that is hardly ever talked about because of the fear of what the backlash would look like. So I'm very happy to talk about this publicly. He has
That's
been.
why I'm proud of him.
It's been a known fact in Bolivia, and we've heard comments about this since I was a teenager, Masih, that anytime Evo Morales would go to different small towns around Bolivia, mothers would bring their 12, 13, 15-year-old daughters to him. And whoever he would choose would be like a blessing for the family, because then they will likely get into some positions within the government in power. This was a known fact in our country. You know how people talk, especially when there's no rule of law, like the only way to kind of figure it out, it's about gossip in town.
Yes.
But then there was a specific case, and I won't name the girl because out of respect for her, but this is a real case. This girl exists. She's now an adult. She's overage.
She lives in Bolivia?
She just got asylum in Argentina. Apparently, she started a relationship with him when I think she was about 13, 14.
No way.
And she became pregnant and had a baby for Morales. There's pictures of them in bed. There's pictures of them traveling together. It has been admitted that she traveled abroad with him without her parents' permission. In Bolivia, for a child to go on a plane, they need to have a permission from the Defense of Childhood institution. She never had any of this signed. There are many, many pictures of them. We have all seen them. It was on the news everywhere. And again, there is a child that she had with him when she was still 15 years old or 16. After this comes out to life and to the public, the pictures come out of them in bed. You can see their feet on the bed. Morales denies it, and there was a trial open against him. There was an order of arrest, which was never executed because, again, this man who was president for 3 terms and then left government in 2019 after the electoral fraud has entrenched himself in the most dangerous drug trafficking area in Cochabamba. He has an army of people that are protecting him. So the government, even though it had every legal reason, even now that the MAS divided and Arce was a public enemy of Morales, they never arrested him. And Morales is kind of stuck in this little island. He doesn't move anywhere because there's orders of arrest. He doesn't want to be arrested. He'd rather stay in a place where he's protected by his loyal followers, who are obviously getting paid, and by drug trafficking rings that protect him because he's the one that installed them in the first place. This article in Washington Post, and this girl received, this woman, she's now 18, once this is announced, she explained, and I saw an interview that she gave, she had to go into hiding. Her and her family started receiving death threats for admitting that this happened. And then...
Wow, in 21st century, she has to go to hiding to just... And then we have Me Too movement here, and no one talked about this.
And no one talked about this. And
don't forget, you have to talk about your fight with Washington Post.
Exactly. And in the end, she leaves to Argentina. She gets asylum there. And the testimony that she gave in order to request asylum, it's long and detailed. Some family members of hers were kidnapped in order to force her to stay silent. It's a very big case. The Washington Post that was covering Morales...
dismissed this.
Completely dismissed this. Not only that, but they mentioned that Morales they do a whole profile on him. Extremely long profile. It seems like they have a lot of space. It's not like it was a matter of space missing in this report. And they mentioned that he is secluded in this part of Bolivia because of an alleged case of human trafficking. I don't think they even say pedophilia per se. And in between parentheses, they say, Morales says that this is a politically motivated case. And if there's no victim, there's no case. End of parentheses. And they move on to something else. If this man is saying there's no victim, there's no case because they fucking almost killed the victim and the poor victim had to leave the country, but she definitely exists, isn't it the journalist's job to at least investigate if the victim exists or to give a little more color to this? Why is it that Bolivian women and Bolivian girls don't get the same respect as any other girl in the world? Any other head of state that would be accused of raping an underage girl, this would be on the news and it would be out of respect for the girl that was raped, at least explain in more than a paragraph, not
no
between
mention
parentheses.
about something that would have been huge news if happens to any American woman here in America.
Any president
I
that
have
raped
to give the
another
credit
girl.
to Washington Post when it comes to actually challenging the mainstream media in New York. I felt lonely because the entire media was calling the killers of my country national hero. And I reached out to Washington Post and I showed them evidence that how Iranians are celebrating the death of this killer. And now you are now mourning in the West and calling. So they published my article. And I really want them to listen to this as well. This woman is risking her life. She's going back to Bolivia. So she's ready actually to give you all information. You can put them in touch with the victim.
Happy to.
And they can do it because it is beyond sad when I see in a country where I joined the Women's March myself. I was so excited, my sister. Jhanisse, I was in the street shouting, "My body, my choice." I put the headscarf on a stick. And then I was like so excited, calling my friends in Iran, telling them that, wow, I am in a demonstration without getting arrested. I am chanting against the president of the country, and no one is here to beaten me up, to drag me to a van. I was so happy. But then when I joined, I asked the same people, the same organizer, the same Women's March
To defend the same rights.
to say, my body, my choice in Iran. They were like, shh, no. And I was like, then where is our sisterhood?
Exactly.
Where is our sisterhood? So you tell me,
Where
because
is
you've
truth?
been working really hard for Human Rights Foundation, where I have so much respect for the entire team, because Human Rights Foundation, to me, in my eyes, is a safe place. No, is a home for activists, like-minded dissidents from authoritarian regimes, which World Liberty Congress later became a baby.
That was born.
Human Rights Foundation, where we unite dissidents, leaders of movements from authoritarian regimes together. We should criticize ourselves. What is wrong with us or the West that is still, when we walk in the street in the West, mainstream media, the youth, the young generation, they sympathize with dictators, with Hamas, with Hezbollah, with the Houthi. There are videos of the young girls here, like saying, "Oh, this Houthi, oh, he's very sexy." They found Osama bin Laden like their hero. So,
Or the Che Guevara.
exactly. So what is wrong, and what should we do more in Human Rights Foundation, in our organization? What should we do more to educate the West that if it happens, like to women of Afghanistan being kicked out from a school, women of Iran being in prison, receiving lashes for singing, like women of Bolivia being absolutely raped. I call it rape. And then you dismiss this
Completely publicly. I agree. And I think it's a narrative game that dictators are winning. And they're winning because they have the resources and they've scared enough people into silence. And they have the resources to install their narrative faster. And I know that people think Bolivia is a small country, but my sister, I have seen in my own people and in my own forest that we are like a test tube for authoritarianism. They test tactics on us that then they later apply somewhere else. And the narrative machine that they built around Morales is insane. The fact that this man can get away with raping an underage girl and still not be called for it in international media shows you that they spend so much time building his image. They spend so much time selling this fake narrative of the indigenous man that became president. When during his government, the attacks on indigenous people's land were higher than under any right-wing government that we've had in Bolivia. When I've seen my home burned to the ground, I've smelled what it smells like when everything is black and you can smell nothing but burnt land. But then again, in the international news, it was never about Morales burning down half his country. It was only about Bolsonaro because it's always good to criticize the right-wing government. That's when it's clear what is wrong. And I'm not trying to say that right-wing governments didn't do anything bad or that Bolsonaro should get any praise. He also was responsible for the burning of his land. But the fact that they're so good at creating these idealized versions of what their leaders are, and again, in the case of Bolivia, it was Morales, that it was so hard to say anything against him internationally, that even people were telling me that I was a U.S. puppet or a U.S. when... Are you going to call me a U.S. puppet? Me picking up the ashes with my own hands in my own country, where I am from, where I've lived my whole life. I am not anyone's puppet. I am trying to save my home from fucking burning down.
I love you.
You're not going to tell me what I can or cannot say, but they win.
It makes me emotional. When they call you American puppet, they call me like, it's beyond sad. They call me the agent, the CIA agent, MI6 agent, Mossad agent. I'm like, I'm only 50 kilos. How come I work with different agencies at the same time? And now
I swear.
both of us living under authoritarian regimes, trying actually to make the world a better place. And then they call you American puppet.
It's insane. And it's such an insult against women. They think that someone else is telling us what to say, when in reality, the ones installing a very vertical and a narrative that hurts, again, it's not just about human rights, which are obviously incredibly important, but it's also the environment. And this blindness to the reality of what authoritarian regimes are doing is also blindness to the damage to the environment that is occurring in these countries. And that is something that people usually never talk about. They only want to focus on the comfortable part of environmentalism, which is talking about recycling or talking about agreements and big UN meetings that happen between different countries.
So you said it's we're losing the narrative because they have more resources. Like, you mean dictators have more resources to change the narrative, to like spread misinformation? Or
I think that would be part of it, but also they are very united. And that's why the work that we are doing is very important, because the Morales narrative was not just very well installed in Bolivia, it was internationally. And you said it yourself. If anything people know about Bolivia is Evo Morales. And then what happened under Evo Morales? Iran built its biggest embassy. Russia got its nuclear deal. Like, the growth of authoritarian influence in the region came immediately after they installed Morales. They're investing to get a return. So if we don't start spreading our stories, if we don't start working together and supporting one another, I even dream, Masih, and I was thinking of this during the Bolivian election, it would have been beautiful that during our election, there's an uprising the same day in another country, because they wouldn't be able to handle 2 or 3 countries at the same time.
So that's why I was going to say that it's not just about dictators who are really like aligned and united to mislead the rest of the world, to win the narrative, but also in the West. I think their political agenda goes first. Like, for instance, if it was Saudi Arabia, they killed, I forgot the name of Khashoggi. Correct? Someone correct my pronunciation.
Khashoggi?
Khashoggi?
I'm not sure, but it's not.
Because I don't want to ruin it. A lot of people butcher my name. I don't want to butcher his name. So when he was actually killed by Saudi Arabia, it was all over the media. All over the media. But when it comes to Iranian regime killing journalists, sending killers here, it's not that big.
Insane.
So because they care about, like, for instance, they don't want to, now, I ask Michelle Obama, I ask all the left and liberals that you launched a campaign, Bring Our Girls Back, about the girls in Nigeria, because Boko Haram was bad. So you all women got united here in America. Now girls in Afghanistan being kicked out from school. They're not allowed to work. They're not allowed to move. They're not actually allowed to talk. Yeah. It makes me angry.
To study.
In 21st century, girls are not allowed to exist, to talk, to study. And then where are these feminists? Where is Michelle Obama?
Or when everything that happened to you. When
forget about me, my sister. Forget about me. Now I want to actually tell them that we are going to help you bring our girls back. We're ready to work with you. Why don't you launch a campaign here in America for the women of Afghanistan? The reason? Because then it's going to be Biden going to look bad. So I think that another reason,
yes,
apart from dictators are working together is because here, sometimes they really care about their political agenda rather than
100%.
feminism or human rights.
100%. And that's a very sad, it's always a lens of, because it's always right versus left. So it has to be the same in Bolivia. It has to be the same in Iran. And it's, for us, it's not an ideology fight. For us, it's a human rights. It's a basic decency. And it even transcends the concept of human rights. For me, it's a fight for life, a fight for truth. Stop killing my people.
That's it.
Stop burning my forest. Stop killing animals because of your fucking greed. That doesn't have anything to do with what is happening in the US, politically speaking. And again, people try to bring it back to the US all the time. Oh, US puppet, blah, blah, blah. The US doesn't care about Bolivia. They haven't done anything about my country in the last couple of years. Trust me, I know that if something happened to me and I knocked on the embassy door, they're not going to open. So we need to get over the narrative of, this is also another thing that bothers me, Masih. Sorry that I'm venting here, but people got stuck with what happened in Latin America in the 80s, and they used the same analysis when the US had a huge influence. And I know this because my grandfather was a political prisoner during the dictatorships in the 80s in Bolivia, and these dictatorships were supported by the US. This is something that really bothers me when people tell me, oh, you're a US puppet. My grandfather was a political prisoner from a government that was backed by the US back then. So I know what it is like to stand for truth, disregarding whoever is trying to have influence in my country. This is about our own rights. And when people don't realize that women like you fight for what is truth, fight for life and for freedom, it says more about their lack of understanding that there can be higher things that motivate a person than actually about what you and I are doing. And I really, really appreciate being able to talk to you about this, Masih, because I've always admired the work that you've done. For me, as a woman, it's beautiful to see other women being the leaders and standing up, because it's usually the men, and we love the men. They're beautiful.
Don't get us wrong. We love the husband. But that's why I admire your work.
Yeah.
When you got back to your country during the election, it was very tempting for me to go back to Iran when the uprising happened, because it was my dream to see all women together, removing their headscarf,
beautiful,
and walking in the street, which is a punishable crime, but like asking the regime, come here, we're ready to sacrifice our life. I was like, you know, for me, I was being bombarded by a lot of Western journalists saying that you're miles away, safe in America, and asking Iranian women to go to the street. And for me, it took me 10 years to tell them that no, Iranian women, they have agency.
Yeah.
They know what they want.
Yeah.
I am just echoing their voice.
Exactly.
I'm just, you know, I am the continuation of their voices. So I'm here, I have the mainstream media, I have the freedom, and I'm telling you that what Iranian woman wants you to hear. So, when you said that you get bothered when they call you American puppet, I remember the same thing happened to me when I met with the US administration, with Trump administration. They were all criticizing me. I was like, hey, I'm in America. I'm a target of assassination plot. And you voted for President Trump. So I met with his administration. I really don't get what is wrong with that.
Yeah.
So that's why I think sometimes when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, they don't really understand that when we talk about killers, when we talk about dictators, we talk about like human rights. It means that you should care about it, whether 100%. You support Trump or Biden.
100%.
What gives you hope then when you see that after years and years of trying to educate the West that human rights should go first, people should go first, and they sometimes ignore this? What gives you hope?
Bolivian people give me hope. Animals in Bolivia give me hope. Even the animals, Masih, because, for example, for this year, for the elections, we created a whole operation to monitor the elections.
Yeah.
And we thought maybe people were not one to join, but we knew that we needed a certain number of people to reach a certain number of electoral tables, get the results, and compare them to the electoral branch and what they were going to announce. And our initial goal, Masih, we said, okay, we need at least 20,000. So we're going to talk to the media, to talk to the people on the streets. I traveled the whole country, and we're going to say we want 30,000 volunteers. But in our heads, we gave ourselves the space that if we don't get 30,000, at least we will make it to 20,000. So we're aiming for higher than we need. we got 60,000 volunteers. We got double the initial number that we wanted. And this again shows, and again, people that for free stood there the whole day. I know people know that this happened in Venezuela, but I want you to know it just happened in Bolivia less than a month ago. People showed up. They were there from 7 a.m. They were there the whole day. They were ready to show us the results in a country.
I want to see it here.
Such beautiful commitment, Masih. It was so, so beautiful. And I kept telling my team, like, they kept telling me, how are we going to get 30,000 people? And we've had protests with 1 million people in Bolivia. It's not that this is the first time we're trying to mobilize such a big group, but the situation has changed. And the fear that there will be violent attacks, which they happened. There were explosions on election day and the day before election day. The violence did take place, but I kept telling my team, like, people always surprise us. Bolivians know we know what we want. So even though we cannot talk to each of them individually, I think we will make it to 30,000. And I remember one of my teammates, Carolina, even laughing at me, like, you're crazy. We're not going to get 30,000 next year. We got 60,000. We got double the number.
Because we are crazy.
I mean, this is like
when you say you're crazy.
Craziness.
It's a crazy thing to do, and you did it.
Yeah.
So you are full of hope. What makes you angry? I told you what makes me angry.
It makes me very angry that every year in my country, we have to pick up burnt animals with our hands because we have a government that doesn't respect life, doesn't respect the environment, and refuses to have proper rule of law happening. And I understand that there can be disagreements between humans, that we cannot agree on what the right government is or what the right ideology is, but I don't understand why jaguars have to lose their paws to the fire every year. I don't understand why armadillos have to burn alive every year just because we cannot figure out disagreements and because we have such an authoritarian government. And again, I've been to prisons. As a woman in Bolivia, it's very dangerous to walk into prisons because they're controlled by the prisoners, not by the police. And I get touched inappropriately sometimes when I do this work. I've seen the devastation that authoritarian regimes have on people. I know it firsthand. But seeing the devastation that it causes in other forms of life and being unable to stop it, because Masih, any other country, when it has a national emergency, an earthquake, a huge fire like the ones that happened in the US recently, it's like the whole country stops and redirects everything they're doing to aid, to support the victims, and to make sure that it doesn't happen again. It's like it shocks the whole country, as it should, whenever there's a natural disaster. The fact that Bolivia has such huge fires repeatedly every year, when you're losing millions of hectares and you're losing millions of animals every year to the fires, you should try to change at least one law. Give me one law to make sure that this doesn't happen again. The fact that it's such a recurrent killing,
that makes
it's ecocide. It's been recognized as ecocide internationally. And these governments get away with it. And they have the face to come to the UN and talk here about respecting Mother Earth. It breaks my heart. It makes me physically sick, Masih.
Yeah,
it really
that.
breaks me.
Sorry, I had to ask this question because when I see the government from my country giving lecture in the United Nations to the entire world about peace, about, the regime in Iran had a top seat at the United Nations to monitor women's rights globally. I was like, whew, I get lashes for singing, for dancing, for showing my hair in Iran. And now they have a top seat at the United Nations to make sure that other countries respect women's rights. You are a co-founder of nonviolence movement. My sister, how we can fight Taliban and Islamic Republic? They have guns and bullets with empty hand.
Precisely because they have guns and bullets, Masih. You cannot try to fight them where they're strong. You cannot try to fight them where they know how to defend themselves. The guy came in front of my house with AK-47.
I know. How can I non-violence? I mean, tell me how I want to live. I want to survive.
I know.
He was there with AK-47.
I know, my sister. I never want anything bad to happen to you.
Tell me about non-violence.
When people think about non-violence,
because you're a big believer of non-violence.
100%. And it's worked in my country. I cannot not believe it when I've seen it being effective, especially against drug trafficking rings and people that also try to hit on me in like a deadly way in Bolivia. I also had to be in hiding for a while.
So you know the pain. You know the pain of being like armless.
Not as bad as you do, but I mean, and again, not just me. Everyone in Bolivia, we've known the pain of what it's like to maybe be shot at any minute. 2019, there were paramilitary groups coming into La Paz.
So that's why. Tell me, like in which kind of situation? In some countries are like different, honestly.
Yeah.
So tell me how nonviolence can work in.
The thing, Masih, is that when people hear nonviolence, they think it's not hitting back or not attacking back. But in reality, it's a misunderstanding, because what nonviolence talks about is when you have a regime that is disproportionately large to you. So your opponent, it's asymmetric warfare. It's still warfare, and it's still essentially a lot of military principles and strategies apply to nonviolence. It's just recognizing that you will not be able to win against their violence because the state, the authoritarian state, has the monopoly of resources, of people, and of weapons in order to execute violence. So if you confront the Iranian regime violently, it is unlikely that you will be able to amass the amount of power that you need to win against them violently.
I know.
So but when you cannot attack them that way, you need to strategize and analyze what their weak points are and how using psychological, cultural, economic, socio-economical, and different mobilization techniques that are not just protesting on the street. It's more like a intelligence operation, what their weak points are and how you organize your strengths in order to hit their weaknesses instead of them using their strengths to attack your weaknesses.
But guess what? The biggest fan of Gene Sharp is the Islamic Republic. They are buying the books.
I can imagine. In Bolivia too.
How to combat. Exactly.
They started to study it to understand.
Why? To understand how to suppress nonviolence uprising in Iran.
But precisely when Putin and Xi Jinping met, I think it was last year, they said that their biggest enemy were nonviolence uprisings. If they both make a public statement saying that these color uprisings are the biggest enemy to their power, it's recognizing that, and you know this, Masih.
Don't get me wrong, of course, my campaign was about just putting the white headscarf on a stick, or just waving in public, or just walking unveiled.
And they're so scared of that.
Yeah, the most peaceful way of protesting. But women got lashes. I myself survived 3 assassination plots on U.S. soil. So that's why I want to ask a challenging question. When I see that the killers who rape women in prison for the crime of simply burning the headscarf, who actually kill teenagers like Nika, Sarina, they were 16-year-old. They were just walking unveiled and peacefully protesting. They both got killed. And before getting killed, Nika was raped in the van.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, and when I see that the killers of these teenagers being eliminated by the U.S. government, I celebrate. Am I doing a bad thing?
I don't think you're doing a bad thing. I understand what you feel. You don't need, first of all, you don't need my moral validation.
No, I need in some case, I really believe in your fight, and you believed in my fight as well.
I do.
But sometimes it's frustrating. It's frustrating to watch the killers like lashing the Afghan girls,
or to see the rapists get a whole report, a positive one on the Washington Post, while those of us women that get attacked.
Then if Morales get eliminated by a democratic country,
I wouldn't be happy.
Because you want to see them in court.
I want to see him in prison, and I want Bolivian people to be the responsible for that happening.
We have waited
because if we
40
don't,
years.
I imagine my sister. I will never tell anyone else how to face their struggle. I will only share from my experience what has been successful, not only strategically, because again, it seems like we may transition to democracy soon. We're still in that process. We have to see what happens. But even spiritually, this work, I cannot be filled with hatred. I will not be able to sustain that. My body cannot do it. But at the same time,
But
beyond that bit,
hate the killers.
it's okay.
Oh my God, I love you.
I know, I do too. But
We're different in this case, but we're
love it.
together.
I love it. And you know what? But beyond that, I really, really, really think it's more strategic to try to analyze how to counter these regimes from a non-violent way. And I'm not saying not fight against them. We have to fight and we have to win. This is crystal clear to me. There's no space for authoritarianism or dictators in this planet. There will never be. There's no way the planet itself can sustain itself as long as this continues to happen. And yet, we have to become more effective. We haven't been as effective as we should have. Otherwise, there wouldn't be so many dictators in the world. And how do we become more effective?
Now more than 70% of the global population living under authoritarian regimes.
But then again, Masih, look, nonviolence is not one thing that you learn reading one book. Everyone thinks, I read Gene Sharp, now I know what to do. That's not true. Like when you're working, trying to take out a dictatorship through nonviolent means, you're working with different system of living beings, humans, who are making decisions daily, and it's many systems that cooperate to sustain the dictator in power. Something very similar is a human body. There are many systems that are working and they're trying to solve a disease. Let's say that a dictator is cancer. Would you let a doctor operate on you after reading one book? You cannot fix something by thinking that by doing a 1 week nonviolence training or reading one book, you will be able to solve it. There's so much to read. There's so much strategy, so much to understand. And I think that as self-criticism, we haven't taken enough time to understand the strategy, because these people are brilliant strategists. They have people that they hire to be military strategists day by day on how to defeat their opponents, which are us. In our case, we're each on our own. Some of us study nonviolence for years, some do it for a week, some read half the book, don't finish it because they get bored.
No,
we're not going to win like that.
We did it in practice.
I know.
For 10 years, all the women from my campaign, they did the most peaceful protest against the Islamic Republic.
I'm not saying that they didn't, but there's so much material that is new.
True.
There is so much new studies on how they're attacking us and how we should respond. And this material is, first of all, not available to us. Second of all, there's not enough people investigating, distilling best practices, and then sharing it. This should be a process that happens yearly. So we learn from I know your fight from a historical perspective, and I know your fight from what I read, that you write and what you say. But I don't know the details of your strategy, Masih. I don't know if I can say that I've learned enough about this strategy that your movement has applied to where I can feel confident to make my own judgment on it. That's why I'm telling you, I cannot tell you if you did right or wrong, because I don't know enough, and it's not my culture. But we should. There should be more resources, there should be more institutions, and there should be more attention into the strategic analysis, if you want even a somewhat military analysis of what is being done by dictators, what are we doing, what works, what doesn't work. And that doesn't exist. Gene Sharp did brilliant work many years ago. I still think that the frame that he created, because it's not a recipe of A, B, C. It's not like you do march, then you do strike, then you do this. No. It's a framework of analysis that then you as an activist feel with the context of your own culture, which is, again, something that most people misunderstand. They think that nonviolence is an ABC. But since then until now, there's not enough institutions that look into this, and the West itself is not investing in this as much as it should.
My sister, let's agree to disagree.
Let's agree to disagree.
So tell me if there is one thing that needs to be done in your country to see a real democracy.
We need rule of law. We need a judicial reform. The EU has already offered funding to Bolivian government, the current government, in the past, and obviously they didn't accept it because it's not in their interest to have a judicial reform. Whoever comes into government after October 19th, the new president will be appointed in theory November 8th. If things go well, if we have enough support for the electoral observation, and if we get to transition, immediately there needs to be a judicial reform. Because if we continue to have the same system in Bolivia, if there's no rule of law, then even if it's a new government, things can still be in the same circle. Exactly. And it's not only about releasing political prisoners, it's also about protecting the environment. It's about many things that go by the fact that rule of law needs to be working. The international community needs to pressure so that this happens. Bolivia's rule of law is almost as bad as Afghanistan. It's very close on the list. We're really, really down there. So we really need to make sure that international community supports on this end. And what's more important, I think, and maybe I should have said this first, that we have the elections on October 19th, that they're free and fair, and that the results are respected. We will be doing our work. We will be doing another massive mobilization. We will be counting the results ourselves to compare with what the electoral branch says. I will be in Bolivia. I hope I'm not arrested after this interview.
I hope you're going to run the country one day.
Cheers to Evo Morales. Happy to talk about your pedophilia anytime.
Yes, but this is the woman that I love. This is the woman that I love.
But we need
when you're going to invite me to
you have
Bolivia.
to come. No, I'll invite you to my wedding in Bolivia next year.
I love to.
Ideally.
Am I going to be safe there?
You will be. We will take care of you. We're friends with a lot of firefighters.
That's my dream. To invite you to my beautiful country, a free Iran, and to come to a free Bolivia.
And I wanted to say that, Masih, when the protests happened in Iran, it was interesting to see in Bolivia because a lot of feminists that support the government didn't say anything. And then other feminists started saying, we have to support the women in Iran. And then because Bolivia is such a close ally in every way, other feminists said, no, like, this is not our fight. We don't understand the culture, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to say anything.
Culture? What culture? What? And I don't get that. Even when... What kind of culture? Like forcing 7-year-old girl to cover her hair. If not, then men cannot control themselves.
Exactly.
Men can rape you if you sing, if you dance. This is the culture of ISIS.
And this is why I want you to come to Bolivia and talk to feminists in Bolivia.
And
I want you to be in my country so that they can see you, that you can dance. We will go out. We will have fun.
What was your cultural shock in America? Mine was for the first time I saw like men and women sitting together in subway. I was like, wow, I can choose where I want to sit. That's so simple, no? But in Iran, men and women are segregated.
Yeah.
Boys and girls from the age of 7, segregated. Schools, we have like we go to beaches, men are different, women. What the heck? These were my cultural shock, like going to the beach with my husband.
Wow.
Even when he wanted to like put some sunscreen on my body, I was like, I'm going to get arrested. These are my cultural shocks. So tell me about you in America.
Well, one of them is the fact that people don't go home for lunch. Back home, the whole family gets together to have lunch, and then parents go back to work. So for me, the fact that people sometimes ate lunch at their desk in the office, that was something very strange. But another thing, and this was a longer cultural shock, was we have so many rituals in Bolivian culture that we do almost every month. There's something that you do. It's called challa, when you bless the whole house, or for November 1st and 2nd, you cook food that the people that passed away like to eat, and you kind of set the table for them and you invite them to be with you. The lack of cultural rituals to me was very disorienting. It was like, but where's your identity? Why don't you what's your traditions? Didn't your grandma teach you to do anything? That and the amount of alcohol drinking here surprised me. In Bolivia, it's like people drink a lot in Bolivia, don't get me wrong, but it's in the weekends. The fact that people on a Monday leave the office and get a drink, I was like, is no one gonna get mad at you for doing this? Like, is your wife or your mother or someone going to
You see, my cultural shock was absolutely different. For me, it was like, oh, I can drink without like hiding, like, you know, or even like going to stadium. For the first time, my husband took me to a basketball game. I didn't even know anything about it, but I was so excited, screaming, just because of sitting next to men in a stadium.
I love this.
I've never been in a stadium in Iran.
Love this.
And it was like, oh.
Yes.
So, American puppet, you said?
Yeah.
And me. Oh my God, you get upset for that. Fuck them.
No, it's okay.
Fuck them.
I love my country so much. I wonder, why isn't it obvious? It's like, our countries are so beautiful. We don't need to claim another country.
I know, but listen, they call you American puppet. But as a woman, you've been through more than this. Like men, they've been called American puppet as well. Like traitor, no? But as a woman, when I get smear campaign and bully on social media is absolutely different.
Yeah, it is a whole different thing.
It's It's
the
like
rape threats are so, it's even worse than the death threats, and they're so much more common. I noticed that difference between threats to men and threats to women and
share with
activists.
me, because I want to know about
No,
your
there was-
experience, because I saw when you are fighting, when you publish something, you get bombarded by
Yeah, it's very
nasty
bad.
comments. Same.
It's very bad. And there's it's very bad with social media and the things that they say, but at the end of the day I know it's bots, but there's a couple
Of course, so they're using
specific
this.
individuals that get obsessed with you, that those are the ones that kind of scare me, who texted me every day on social media, and sometimes were like, I know where you live, in 7 days you're going to be gone. I remember I was once in Mexico and I kept receiving messages of they knew where I was staying in Mexico, and it was this, like, there's only specific men, it's always men that get obsessed with us, and then they insist on this. And then one of this, who was not Bolivian, went to Bolivia and then went to La Paz when I was there doing very public protests. So my team was very nervous because we knew that this person has been incredibly obsessed with me for the past months. I think at this point it wasn't even years. It's been years though. And at one point, thank God I wasn't there, because at the end of the day, Masih, as you know, I believe in nonviolence. I believe if I saw one of these persons, I would try to hold their hands and like, let's talk. Let's figure this out.
I even did that in America when someone attacked me. I was like going to the woman to talk to her, to hold her.
I remember. Yeah. But it can get very dangerous. I've even had psychologists of certain people, and this is probably something that they shouldn't do. But reach out to me and say, I have a patient who's obsessed with you. Please be mindful of not going to this part, because it may be not good for your safety. And I'm not supposed to break this, but I know there's no rule of law, so it's not like they can report it to the authorities and then something will be done. So yeah, and that versus like intelligence people following me, which happens often in Bolivia. I'm fine with that. I'm like, you're doing your job. I feel bad for you. It's
the way that you handle bullies and smear campaign is nonviolence. Mine, I want to just tell you a story, and then I want to hear from you. When I hear people want to rape me, people like in the street in London, there was a man and stopped me and say, "You ugly woman, you're ruining the image of my country," just because of sharing, the bad side of the regime. He thought that I'm ruining the image of Iran. He called me ugly. As you know, I'm a beautiful woman. In the eyes of my husband, I'm a beautiful wife. You have a very
handsome husband. Clearly, you guys are on a very good level, both of you.
In the eyes of my son, I'm a beautiful mom.
Yes.
In the eyes of my mom, I'm a beautiful daughter. So I knew that I am beautiful. So I took my camera and I ran after him. And I said, "Hey, you called me ugly. Can you repeat it now?" And then the guy was like, he couldn't, because I had my camera. So, and I was like, I won the battle. So that's nonviolence.
Yeah, that's
so I encourage a lot of women to use their camera.
That's very important.
Expose the harassers, the morality police, the ones sexually harass them. That's the way in Iran we fight against rapists, against violence. So, but at the same time, when we get like bullied on social media, a lot of women in Afghanistan, I talk to them, they deactivated their page because it's too much.
It is a lot.
It's too much, like naming their body and shaming them, using AI to, create edited video of me being raped.
I found out about that.
Yeah. So how we should fight against this online sexual harassment? How do you do? Well, like when you see being bombarded, sexually harassed online?
Usually for me, the smear campaigns always happen during fire season, because during fire season, I'm talking to international media, trying to make them aware of the crisis in Bolivia, not only to show the authoritarianism and abuse of the government, but also to request aid, because we need support, we need equipment. The government doesn't provide the firefighters with equipment, so we are the ones that try to get it into the country, which usually the government also blocks. So it's a whole other story. But when I'm speaking about these issues internationally, it used to bother Morales, it bothers the current government too, because it exposes them, even though they say they're a leftist government and they protect the environment, in the fact that they're actively burning the Amazon. And this is when the smear campaigns get very bad. And at the beginning, 2019, the smear campaigns were always happening at the same time as someone physically following me.
Yes.
So it felt more scary because it was like a warning sign that I had to go into, like, start hiding or things like this. Now I realize that smear campaigns are essentially the opponent's recognition that your work is reaching a higher impact that they wanted to reach. And therefore, it's a distraction tactic. They're trying to get you distracted so that you respond to it, take credit away from it, change the narrative. Again. So the best way to respond to a distraction tactic, if it's a recognition of your victory, is to enhance the victory. So instead of responding to smear campaigns, what I try to do is, okay, it's working. This is the opponent's recognition that it's working. The opponent wouldn't go on defensive if you were not on the offensive. So I need to focus even more on what is going on. And the thing that is good for me is because the fires are such a physical thing, you cannot deny that they're in front of you. It's easier to shift my focus again to what is happening in front of me and working with the firefighters than if I was just in my office, I guess, all day or something like that. Then it's more difficult to not respond to social media. But to me, it's acknowledgement of victory means that I need to work even harder in what I'm doing and not engage. Because when I engage, it feeds the person attacking me, because in many cases, it's bots and it's fake news, and we both know that. But in some cases, it's people that have really, for some psychological reason, fixated on you. So interacting with them kind of feeds that interest. It makes them even more fixated on you. That's what I learned. So I completely disregard.
Makes sense. Yeah. That actually sometimes works, but sometimes, like for instance, when it's state television, trying to actually air fake news. In my case, it was saying that Masih Alinejad was raped by 3 men in the subway. So then your mom calling you, family calling you, or you say publicly you have to challenge them. And, it was a beautiful conversation. I want
smear campaigns.
Yes, smear campaigns. Let's end everything. I mean, it's even ending with the smear campaigns. It means that fuck you. We're not scared of you. It means that look, 2 women using their voice to challenge you, but you scared of them. You want to kill her. Women. You want to kill me, and we go in hiding. But that's not gonna be forever. That's not going to be...
You're strengthening my spiritual capacities.
Yeah. And I want to invite you in my hiding as well. The only people maybe can understand that being invited in hiding
is
you're invited to my home. Thank you so much. It was beautiful. And I want to see you winning the next round of the election.
Amen. No, thank you, Masih, for being an inspiration for all of us. You know, I mean, there's you, there's Maria Corina, there's a lot of wonderful women who are leading this.
We need to create a female coalition, female opposition coalition.
I think that would win against dictators.
Yes!
I really think it would.
Let's do it then.
Let's do it. Let's work on it.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Thank you, sister.
We're good.